Ralph,
I
as
think.
Ralph says. Okay, so it says lo yetzi gomo b'mutotelet, right? The gomo can't go out on Shabbat with the mutotelet, right? So let's see. Aaron wants to join in. So the mutotelet, there's a major discussion, different opinions on what is this mutotelet that we're referring to. Good morning, Aaron. Welcome to town.
Good morning, Rabbi Friedman.
Good morning, Adam. So we just got started in the Mishnah on 54a2. And the Mishnah continued talking about animals and Shabbat, concerns about carrying animal, either concerned about the animal doing work and animal can't work on Shabbat, or maybe it might not be an issue of the animal, it might be an issue of you coming to prevent you from carrying on the Shabbat. Sometimes it might not be considered a problem for the animal, might not be considered work, but if something might fall off the animal and you might come to carry the item that falls off, that would be a problem. That would be also a problem, as we know, right? The animal can't carry, you can't carry. So the Mishnah says, now, right? The Perek opened up in, we'll call the more positive light. What can an animal go out with on Shabbat? What's not called work? What's called part of the animal? Let's say clothing. What's deemed what has the same status of clothing of the animal, or certain type, and would not be a problem for it to go out. But now we're saying but what an animal is not allowed to go out on Shabbat. In Shut Rabim, what can't it go out? The camel cannot go out with the mututelet. So let's say we'll go with the pshat one. We'll say one of the pshatim mututelet is a saddle cloth, and the concern from the Gemara seems to be that maybe the saddle cloth will come off, and that will be the concern. If the saddle cloth is going to be tied in a way that it's not going to fall off, we'll see in the Gemara, then it wouldn't be a problem for the animal to go off. The concern if it falls off, you might come carry it, right, Adam? If it falls off, you might come carry the saddle cloth, and you might come in public property. So people have to be careful, on Shabbat, you go out, you're wearing a yarmulke on Shabbat. Now, many people wear the yarmulke during the weekdays too. But on Shabbat, everybody's wearing the yarmulke in the street, and if your yarmulke falls off, you have to be careful not to pick it up and start walking with it. I think people might need to be careful about that. So the Mishnah says the camel can't go out with the mutetelet. Lo akud v'lo ragul. We know the word akud is from like akedat yitzchak, right? Moshe, you had time to say the Birkat Torah? You already did. Beautiful. So akud is tied like akedat yitzchak. You can't tie the animal. Let's say you don't want the animal to run away. So you would tie the front leg of the animal to the back leg of the animal. So therefore that would keep the animal in place. So therefore it says the Mishnah animal can't go out with its front leg tied to its back leg. Or velo rogul. Or rogul, we'll see also another type of tying we'll see in the Gemara that's made to prevent the animal from running away. What's the problem? Why can't it go out if it's tied to each other? If its front leg is tied to its back leg, so either you could say because maybe the rope will fall off and you might come carry the rope, or maybe you could say that since it is not comfortable for the animal that it's tied, since it's not comfortable for the animal that it's tied, so it's like a load. It's extra. And therefore something that's, when you do something which is beneficial for the animal, that's not called something that's beneficial for the animal, that's not called carrying. But you put clothing on the animal to keep the animal warm. Good morning. We are on 54a2. Who do we have the privilege of joining the class today? I'm Mr. Alan Haven, and thank you for joining us. So 54a2, we just learned the middle of the Mishnah, where we're discussing what animals could go out with on Shabbat to public property, what it can't go out to public property, and what the issues are. So the Mishnah states that you can't go now. So some explain the concern is it's like an extra load. This rope that you tie, you're doing it for your purpose. And let's say, and also it's not you're doing it, we found the animal can go out with reins, right? You want to restrain the animal. We said that was allowed, right? The animal go out with that. But yet when good morning or in. But here we're talking about something which is painful for the animal, this type of tying. So that's some want to say, and therefore it's considered like a load. Um, well, some say that this is called excessive. Remember we had a machlokas in the Gemara. If you have excessive, you do something, you place something in an animal which is excessive restraint that's not necessary. Is that called, let's say an animal doesn't need that level of security, and you put something on that's more than it needs. So whether that's called, might be called a load, that might be called carrying as well. The reason for why it's called carrying. Other animals as well. When we say the animal, the Meiri learns it's going on the prohibition of an animal going out with its front leg tied to its back leg, or the other case of a ragul that applies not only to a camel, that applies to other animals as well. Now the Mishnah continues. Lo yiksher gemalim zeh b'zeh v'yimshoch. On Shabbat, let's say you can't, if you have, let's say you have a camel 1, camel 2, camel 3. So if let's say you have the rope, the rein of camel number 1, you can't have camel number 1's rope tied to the rope of camel number 2, and camel number 2 is tied to number 3, and then go out on Shabbat with them. What's the problem? The Gemara says the problem is it looks like you're going to the market. The Gemara is going to say for sale. That's how they would tie the ropes of each animal to each other, and you would walk it like that. So therefore, that's what the Mishnah says. You can't tie. Owen, is that clear? You can't tie. You prayed already. You didn't pray yet. Okay. So you can't tie the ropes of the camels to each other of them, and then draw and go out with the animals in that fashion. But you could, instead of tying the ropes to each other, you could go ahead and take rope number 1, hold rope number 1, take rope number 2 in your hand, hold rope number 2, take each rope in your hand. That you could do, and go out with the animals. But you can't wrap the ropes on Shabbat. On Shabbat, you go out. You go again. There's no load on the animal. There's nothing. You're not driving the. You're not riding the animal. You're going out with the animal, taking the animal out on Shabbat with the rope. You can go in and do it as long as you don't wrap the rope around your hand. If you wrap the rope around your hand, that will be a problem. And the Gemara is going to explain what's the issue by wrapping it around your hand. Now, you want to take it for a walk on the Shabbat. So it sounds like you could take the animals for a walk on Shabbat.
That's why you learn that you can take your dog.
They can take a dog. That's exactly why they can take the dog for the walk. But it says here in the Mishnah, you can't wrap the rope around your hand.
Touch it.
So that's a good question. I mean, muksa. We have to look into the halacha. The general, when it comes to muksa, you see, when it comes to muksa, the issue in general is you're not allowed to move muksa. There's no problem touching muksa, but a live animal, you can't. What I think you can't put pressure on the live animal. You can't be mishtamesh b'balachayim. If you put pressure on it, even if it's not moving, that should be a problem. That should be a problem. We have to look up. We have to look up the halacha. You give me homework, Owen. Okay, if you don't mind, I got to do some homework. I'm a city boy. I'm not too much.
Dogs in the city.
Huh? I don't touch dogs. What can I tell you? So now, Tana, the Gemara says the following: Tana lo yitzei gamo b'motelak shirlo b'znavo. We mentioned the halacha that the camel can't go out mutatelet, and some say it's referring to the mutatelet is referring to the saddlecloth. It can't go out to public property because we're afraid it's going to fall off. So the Braita explains that's only if it's tied only by its tail. If you tie the saddlecloth to the tail of the animal, then it's not such a strong as with movement of the animal, it could go ahead and fall off the saddle cloth, and you might come to carry it. But if it's tied, but if it's tied to the of a yosim with a telek shirbis navav v'chutroto, if you tie it very well, the saddle cloth to the hump of the animal and to the tail of the animal, you got it tied on both sides very well. That we're not afraid it's going to fall off, and you're allowed to go out with it in such a fashion. Rabbi Huna says, you know what? Once you're telling me that, you know what? I have another way it could go out, even if it's not tied to the hump and its tail. That if it's tied that if it's tied to the shilyata is the sac that holds the baby if it has a fetus, so it could go out with they call it the placenta. It could go out if some of the placenta is hanging out of the animal. You could tie the saddle cloth to that because the animal is not going to want to move around so much. Why are we afraid the animal's going to move around a lot and knock off the saddle cloth? But if it's tied to the placenta, if it moves around a lot, then it's going to affect the movement of the fetus and the placenta, and it's not going to want to do that. The animal will cause pain, so therefore you don't have to worry that it's going to fall off. Lo okud v'lo ragol. We said in the Mishnah that you can't tie the animal can't go out if it's akud, it's ragul. So what's akud? What's ragul? So we know akud is like kedat yitzchak, right? So the Gemara says Amar Rabbi Yehuda, akud is a kedat yad v'regel. When you go ahead and you tie the front, right, Oren? The front of the animal, the foreleg, you call it the front, right, to the back leg, that would be considered that you can't do on animal can't go out on public property if it's tied in such a fashion. Now, again, what we said the problem is either the problem is it might come off the rope, or the problem is that the rope is, and you might come carry the rope, or the problem is that that's called a load for the animal because it's excessive, too much, too tough. You're being too tough with the animal. You can't say that rope that's tied is considered part of the animal, so to speak, like for the animal. It's overly done. So that's what the Gemara says. Yitzchak, so the Gemara says that's like Yitzchak ben Avraham. Akiv is Yitzchak ki Yitzchak ben Avraham. Akud is like now what was Yitzchak ben Avraham? Good morning, doctor. So Yitzchak ben Avraham. So how did Avram tie Yitzchak? Let's say his hand was tied back, and his foot was tied back, and that pulled out his, let's say that pulled that his foot is tied back like that. That's probably, and then his hand is tied back, and the foot is tied to the hand. So that will stretch out his neck, getting ready for what? For proper slaughter. We're on Doctor 54A3. So the Gemara says that's Chita ben Avraham, and Ragul is shelo yakuf yado agab Yisrael. You can't go ahead and make it in a way that the animal is only going to go on 3 feet. Instead of having 4 feet, that you tie the front of the animal. No, you don't very good. So they say, oh man, it's not the same. But Yitzchak ben Avraham was tied tightly, his hand and his foot, but this is loose. As it's tied loosely, so the point is that it shouldn't run away. But the animal, you left space for the animal to go, and that's what we say. You still can't do that. Now, the fact that it's also loose, that's why it could fall off. And if the rope falls off, you might come to carry the rope. Therefore, listen, rope is a commodity. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like it's a thing that you might just throw in the garbage. Backyard, it won't be a problem, right? That's not a problem. The problem would be going out in the Reshut Rabim, going on in such a fashion to public property. So So rogul is when you can't bend the foreleg, which is like the hand, the front, you're bending it onto its upper foreleg. So that would be a problem, and that will make the animal walk like on three, um, on three legs, and that's the problem. Okay, so that's the two, but that's what rogul means. So now the Gemara explains. Meitive, I'll answer the question. Akud, you told Akud, when the rabbis, here's a bright. We have Rabbi Yehuda as the Amorah, the later rabbi. And he translated Akud means bound, the front to the back, right? That's Akud. But we have a bright that says Akud. Now, what would that indicate? But if it's the 2 feet together, or the two things, or the back of the animal together, that doesn't seem to be a problem. The only thing that he says the problem is the front to the back, and or somehow or just bending the front in a way back by itself to make it going on 3 feet. That would be a problem. But meitive akud, when the rabbis say akud, that the animal can't go out if it's tied like akud, shtei yadayim. That's when the 2 front are tied to each other, or the 2 back are tied to, or the 2 back are tied to each other. Rogul is shliikif yodal gabazav yiksha. Don't bend the front on top of its roa and tie it. So we see that akud, we have a different translation for akud than what we said. Akud, we said the front to the back, and here we said akud is the 2 front together, the 2 back together. So the Gemara says, Hu Damaketan, he has a different Tana. He has that meaning. Rabbi Yehuda, the Amora, his translation of akud is in sync, follows, he has a different Tana on his side. Akud, akid yad regel, what does it say in the Braita? Akud, the akid yad regel, it's a tying of the hand and the foot, the front and the back, which is in sync, Rabbi Yehuda. But it also says, the Tana also says, Oshtei yadayim, oshtei reglayim. This Tana has a broader definition for akud. Not only akud means the front to the back, it also means the 2 front legs together, or the 2 forearms, or the 2 back legs together. And rogul is shaliyuk of yodal gavazot. Rogul is don't bend the front towards the shoulder and tie. So we see from here that he has a Tana that says akud, that the word akud, doctor, when you're not allowed to go ahead and do an akud and go out to public property, means front to the back, the front to the back. So he has a Tana on the side. But the Gemara says, but kati lo dami, but it's not. We still have a question on his pshat, because bishlam reisha v'sefer nicha. The Braita has a reisha, this Braita, beginning, sefer is the end, and has a mitzviyat at the middle. The beginning of the Braita says akud, hand and foot, right? The front of the foreleg and the back leg of the animal together. That's fine. That fits Rabbi Yehuda. And the translation of ragul, not bending the foreleg onto its upper, the lower foreleg onto its upper foreleg. That is also that shot is also fine. But the middle mitziyat kasha, because the middle Braita stated that included in akud is not only the front to the back, but the 2 front together is also akud. And Rabbi Yehuda did not say that. But if Rabbi Yehuda did not say the same, Rabbi Yehuda would say there's a restriction of the front to the back, but the 2 fronts together or the 2 backs together, that they did it in a way that you don't have to worry that the rope would fall off, or they did it in a way that it's not considered too excessive, too much pain for the animal. It's not considered a load. And this Braita says you can't even do it that way. The animal can't even go out with the 2 fronts together, 2 backs together. So the Gemara says, Elahu, he has a different Tana on his side. Which Tana does Rav Yehuda go like? That's very specific, that akud is only for baiting the front leg and the back leg, but not the 2 fronts together or the 2 backs together. If they're tied together to go out, A kud is akedat yad v'regel. A kud is specifically only limited to front and the back. Yitzchak ben Abraham. And Ragul is shelo yukuf yodo agabizov yiksha. And Ragul is not bending the front leg to make it in a way that you're going to have only animal going on three legs. But it's not including, it's not forbidding the two fronts together or the two backs together. Now, now the Gemara says, you said you cannot tie the camels together. You can't have them tied together and go out on Shabbat with the ropes of each camel tied to each other, right? You have 10 camels. Avram had 10 camels, right? He came right to you. If it would be Shabbat, he won't be able to. Eliezer had 10 of Avram's camels. If he would be Shabbat, he wouldn't be able to go out in public property if the ropes are tied to each other, but they could be around his hand, as long as I'm sorry, he could have the 10 ropes in his hand, but he can't wrap them around his hand. We'll see what the issue of wrapping. So the Gemara says, "My timer, what's the problem if the ropes of the camels are tied to each other?" It's a marit ayin problem on Shabbat or at any time of the year. You can't do something that looks like you're doing a sin. You don't go into McDonald's to use the restroom of McDonald's. Because if you go into McDonald's, it looks like you're going to buy some fries and some burgers, right? Burgers and fries or whatever, cheeseburger. That's what it looks like if you go into McDonald's. So you don't. So here it looks like you're doing a sin. So here, this placement of the roping of one rope of one camel can tie to another rope of another camel, going out on Shabbat with it. It looks like you're going to the what? You're going to the market to sell. Right? We had a tosfot earlier also about if the saddle cloth wasn't tied on before Shabbat, it looks like you're going for a big trip, right? Going outside the tchum, going right the marit ayin problem, right? Okay.
Going to McDonald's by time?
Say it again.
Going to McDonald's by time? I got to use the bathroom.
The McDonald's, I think you should use it. You should go to a different restroom. Don't go to the McDonald's bath. Don't go into it. See, the question would be, do we say that maybe enough people will go buy a soda at McDonald's? You know what I mean? A bottle of soda. So that would be the question. Would we say that would say that it's, or do we say no? The common thing that's bought in McDonald's is not kosher food. So maybe that, I would say you should really avoid it as much as, avoid using the bathroom at McDonald's. You go to, well, let's say a restaurant, not kosher restaurant. I was this Sunday at a Pigeon Ben, and it was outdoors, but then need the men's room. I'm not going to go into the not kosher restaurant men's room because it looks like I'm going to eat in the not kosher restaurant, right? So I went to a different men's room. You know what I'm saying? Adam, you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, like a real restaurant versus like a disgusting place like McDonald's. I would think McDonald's is a little bit better because like a lot of people use the bathroom in there, and a normal person be like, even a secular Jew wouldn't lower themselves like this. So, but yeah, there's a spectrum, but it's all
right. So you see, it's not a simple thing. There's also issues where people have business meetings in restaurants that are not kosher. So it's not a simple thing that people have to be, have to look into the halakha. Because am I allowed to go to join a meeting in a not kosher? I'm not eating anything, and I'm having a Coca-Cola in the restaurant. But the fact that you're going and you're having the meeting and you're walking into that restaurant, do we say that, what, you're walking in with your tie and your jacket like an official, so it looks like you're just going for a meeting not to eat? But what do you do in a restaurant? You do in a restaurant, you eat in the restaurant. So it looks like you're, it's not a simple, it's not a simple thing. You have to, Mr. Haber, is that a good question, right? Is that any comment on that from your experience? So for a business meeting, right? It's something to. Any comment on it, or okay? I don't hope you don't mind me putting you on the spot. Not on the spot. Nothing. But I'm just saying, you understand what I'm saying? It's something we gotta see what we do. Definitely gotta try to avoid such things. Yeah, right. Okay, so let's continue in the Gemara. Of a machnis. But we said you could go ahead and instead of having the ropes tied to each other, you could go one level. You could have it. You could have the ropes. You could put the 10 ropes in your hand and then go out with the animals on Shabbat. So the Gemara is, but it says you can't wrap it around your hand. Amar Rashi lo shanu inyan el inyan klayin. What's the issue of wrapping the ropes?
My
Klayin.
first question.
Yes. Now, what? Yeah, right, Ralph. What is klayin? Now we know there's different types of klayin. Klayin, you can't mix seeds, right? You can't mix seeds together. There are famous klayin of the Torah. Said again, it's taking a barley and a grape seed and a wheat seed together, where the Torah actually forbade the growth, the things that grow from. It's also you're not allowed to eat it and benefit from it. Also, bahana what? Why is that halacha? It will call it a chok, right? But it's part of it. I think it's part of it. Hashem does not want things to mix. You know, Hashem made the things to grow a certain way, the same way that Hashem does not want you to graft, take take a lemon branch and tie it to an etrog tree. Can't graft. The holiday of Sukkot is coming. You have to be careful. You're not allowed to. The etrog can't be grafted. Yes.
Different animals for them.
Plowing with the Torah doesn't want you to plow with two different animals. The Torah does not want you to mate two different animals together. The Torah does not want men and women to dress like each other. There's a lot of mixing that the Torah wants to keep separate. There's a lot of and that is, if Hashem made everything in a certain fashion, a certain way, and Hashem wants not to mix. Maybe the Sefer Chinuch usually talks about reasons for mitzvot. Maybe you could look in there. Or I'll give you a little homework over Shabbat. Take a look at the Sefer Chinuch. Maybe he will say what the reason for, why the Torah does not want, to mix the seeds together. You know what I mean? Obviously, Hashem made each seed. If Hashem wanted to, Oren, he could have made the mixed seed together to begin with. He could have created that phenomenon. Obviously, he wanted this to be an apple. He didn't make it as a grapefruit. The people make it grapefruit. The people mix it in a certain fashion, right? What? Yeah, yes. I don't know if we could check it out, but a grapefruit is a mixture. A grapefruit is a mixture of what? An orange and something else, right? Yeah, grapefruit is a grafted fruit. But it's okay. You can't plant it. You could eat it. The Torah did not forbade you to eat. The Torah is forbidding of the grape seed and the wheat and the barley. That the Torah forbade and benefit. But the Torah forbade. We're not allowed to graft. But once it's grafted, someone else did the grafting. We're not forbidden from eating it yet. Right? You can use the mule. Very good. A mule is also a mix of different animals. You can't mix. You can't mate these different animals. But once it's there, the Torah did not forbade it. Now, there's a whole discussion by etrog. Why is an etrog that's grafted? Why can't I use an etrog that's grafted? If you look at the etrog box, it says bilti murkav, that it's not grafted. What's the problem with a grafted etrog? So, what would Dr. Rosen? You want to suggest something? Look like you. Okay, but we said you'll have to benefit from. But you know what? You could benefit from, but. So Dr. Rosen wants to say, good morning, Boker Tov, that because it's not appropriate for a mitzvah to go, you can take a seat right here. Thank you for joining. It's not appropriate for do a mitzvah in something where it was created, what Dr. Rosen says, with a sin, so to speak, with something where Hashem did not want it to be done that way. And I think, by the way, many say that the goyim, there are those that say a goyim are also prohibited to graft. You can look into that halacha too. But the point is, an avera that was done, to do a mitzvah, and something that was done in the way Hashem does not want you to do, that it should not have been done that way, that it was grafted. That's one reason. But there's another reason why an etrog that's grafted is no good. Why? It's not an etrog. It's a new species. it's a new, it became, it's, when you have a mix of two different items, you mix the lemon with the etrog, you got something else. It's not an etrog. It's a beautiful, I recommend everyone in the Yechavedat. He has a beautiful, uh, uh, piece on etrog. That's, what's the halacha. He goes into these details, exactly what we're starting to speak about. That if either what's the problem with etrog that's grafted, is the problem that it might be not being, it's not it lost it's a new thing. It's not an etrog anymore, or is it because an avera something was done with it? I recommend. Oh, and I'm going to give you more homework.
This is Ravera. Maybe only the one that mentioned the Talmud, like the grapes and the barley. Everything mixes is Ravera.
I'm thinking mixing again. What the Torah forbade. Torah says don't mix seeds, right? The Torah says don't mix different seeds. Say it again.
Hey, that only certain things.
Certain
Everything.
again. It seems there's two different types of prohibitions. There's a prohibition that's connected to grape seeds, mixing grape and wheat and barley,
Yeah.
which has its own laws. It's its own laws of. What's that again? Okay, again, there is this different sukkim in the Torah about seeds, mixing seeds, but seeds, different things. But then there is we can look and we could see exactly the source for the grafting if it falls, where that comes from exactly. But there's different laws. There's much more. The laws are much stricter regarding the klaya kerem, the vineyard with the grapeseed. There, the Torah forbade you from benefiting from it. Meaning, if you had a mix, right?
The next level.
It's a different level. Meaning more prohibitions connected to the thing, but when it comes to other mixed seeds, the benefit is permitted. You could eat it. You can't do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's every big city.
It would seem like it would seem. I'm saying it would seem that listen, there's no difference between a lemon and, I mean, if you graft, it would seem any type of grafting of different species of seeds. What's the difference between a lemon and an etrog is not unique. That there's no specific focus on lemon and etrog. It's just that was the common way, because if you want to approve the etrog, right? Why would they graft it? The point is because the grafting, you get the strength, the qualities of the other item. So when you graft, when you tie the lemon branch to let's say to that tree, so when it grows, when the etrog tree grows, it benefits. It gets the nutrients from the other things, right? And therefore, but it's not specific to that. You understand what I'm saying? I just want to answer your question, Oren. So the problem of grafting should be any two different types of trees should be under that category of grafting. Now, kalayim demai. What kalayim are we referring to? Now, Dr. Rosen mentioned you can't work with two different animals, right? You can't take lo shachosh b'shor v'chamo yachdav. So you can't plow with an ox and a donkey. You can't put them together, tie them together, and let them plow. That's called kalayim. That's a case of the Torah forbade. But what about you? You together with a camel, or you together with an ox? Just you, the person. That's not a problem. So what's the problem if I tie the ropes around my hand of the animal? What's the issue? You can tell me it's a mix of me and the animal. That's not a problem. That when I tie the rope around my hand, it's like I'm tied with the camel because it's tied around my hand. It's like I'm tied with the camel, but that's not a problem. You can't tie a donkey, an ox with a camel. But there's no problem of tying a person with a camel. But nan, we learned in the Mishnah, Odom mutam kulam nachosh lamshoch. You could go ahead and plow with any type of animal. The only Torah only forbade is different types of animals can't be tied together. Ela klaim de chavalim. You know what the problem is we're talking about? If the one rope was made out of linen, and one rope was from the wool material, And if you wrap it around, and you're going to get benefit of the heat, if they're wrapped around your hand, that will be the problem of kalayim. You're benefiting from mix. We didn't mention that other wool and linen together. You can't will shatnez. It's another mix of wool and linen together. So the Gemara says, but what's the problem? If it's not, there should not be a problem because it's not stitched double. It's not stitched properly. There should be a problem. But nan hatoket chiva achat in a chibur. If you just put if I take a thread and I have wool and linen and I put a thread one stitch right that's not going to be a chibur. That's not considered attached. That's be a problem of kalayim. So if I put it around my hand, how is that going to go ahead and be? How is that called the problem of kalayim, of wool and linen together? That doesn't meet the bar of wool and linen together. But the Gemara says, "Olam kalayim dechavalim." We're talking about the ropes coming together. As long as you don't wrap it and tie it. If you tie it together, if you tie wool and linen together, that makes it one, and that will be a prohibited. So too, what we're saying over here is you can't tie the ropes together around your hand, because if you tie the ropes together, that's wool and linen tied together. And wool and linen tied together, and that will be a problem if you're benefiting from the warmth of them together. Whichever we wish everyone a beautiful Shabbat. Thank you all for joining. Beautiful having everybody. Now there's minyan upstairs right now. 7:30 minyan upstairs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oren, have a good Shabbat. Oren, I wanted to tell you too, Ralph. The question that you asked last week about refuah, if it's if something that's not, if there's a way of some sort of healing action which is not connected to medication at all. Remember, you asked, would that be a problem? Would that be a problem or not? So I'm saying we have to. I saw one thing I saw. It says that there are certain things that's not you're not using medicine, but the problem is you might come to use a medicine for it. So you have to know. But if there's something that you'll never come to use a medicine, there's room. It would again. I didn't do the full research. If you'll never come to use, if there's no way, there's no medicine used with it. So there, I saw something that maybe that might not be a problem, because the whole problem why you can't do the act of refuah healing, it might come to medicine, it might come to grind the medication. But if it's never going to come to medicine, but I saw in looking Sim and Shin Chav Ches, there's a discussion about this. Okay, I just want to give you back to you a little bit on that. Have a great Shabbat. Great to see you. Thank you. You make the whole class a different class. The more people can. You both, everybody, Adam, Kevin, everybody come.